Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. If you're a chief executive, or if you think like one, and you want to create exponentially greater impact, then this show is for you. My name is Richard Medcalf, founder of Xquadrant. I coach some of the most successful and impressive CEOs and executive teams on the planet and help them achieve extraordinary results. And no matter how successful you've been in the past, there's always a whole new level of impact available to you. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO. As an exec working in a fast-moving and complicated business, how do you communicate complex ideas to influence your stakeholders? Let's face it, most advice on this topic turns out to be useless. Keep it short, improve your writing, be more strategic. What do you do with that? In almost every executive team I've reviewed that I've done, I've noticed that executive communication to and within the team is one of the top obstacles. So what can we do about that? Well, that's what we're here to talk about today in the first episode of season 5 of the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast, which is called From Ideas to Impact. And in this season, we're going to offer some different perspectives around communicating complex ideas. I'm Richard Medcalf, founder of Xquadrant, and today and in this season we're going to flip the tables, and I'm going to interview Davina Stanley from the Clarity First program, who, as you probably know from previous seasons, is an expert in communication. So we're going to find out what she has to say about this really fascinating topic of communicating with impact. Hi Dav, good to see you again.
Hi Richard, how are you?
I'm well.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is it sunny and shiny there in Paris? It can't be. It must be winter.
No, it's kind of winter here. It's getting a little bit. There's a bit of spring, just suggesting it might come through. So, but yeah, the main problem today is that we have no water in the house. We're having our water meter changed, and so if there's suddenly any flooding or panic screams from anybody, and I have to stop the podcast, then everybody will know why. A little bit of drama built in here, a little bit of tension into the system.
Bit of tension in the system. No, that's a very fine thing to be mindful of, isn't it? So I guess our seasons are turning too, but we're losing our sunshine here in Sydney, and we are obsessed with weather in Sydney because it is so often so good.
Yeah.
But we have had lots of rain, so water must be the theme for today, I think.
Yeah,
lots and lots of rain.
We do play a game with our relatives in Australia to to find out when the seasons are turning and when we can start to boast that we now have summer and so forth.
So enjoy that.
Yeah. But even though winter is probably as good as our summer, so never mind.
Never mind. Well, there's lots to be loved about Paris anyway, so I think we can compete all along, but we don't need to. Yeah.
So so let's just jump in. Sorry, what do you want to? What's the idea really behind this season? What do you want to share with people?
Well, I'd love to give some ideas about how to think differently about your communication, actually. I think, like Richard said, a lot of advice that people get is very generic and quite unhelpful. And so when somebody reviews a document, and we'll focus perhaps on documents for the moment, although the principles that I'll be talking about during the series apply to any kind of communication, whether they're emails or papers or PowerPoints or preparing for a meeting. So if we say document, I guess I'm thinking a very broad church of communication. But looking at the thinking that sits underneath the communication is really powerful. And I think it's very hard for people when they're giving you feedback on communication to actually dive into that level. They're much more inclined to sit at the surface and look at the things that they can see that are wrong.
That reminds me, so just interrupt, but that reminds me of Dilbert, the cartoon Dilbert. And there's a great cartoon where Dilbert explained that he always added spelling mistakes into his presentations because that gave his boss something to correct.
Yes. On my program, I had somebody offer a similar suggestion. She actually would leave like bullet points and suggestions in that were just a bit wobbly, that she thought it's no real disaster if they're left in, but it's better if they're taken out, just so that they
Yeah.
could actually use it. I'm going to hunt for that Dilbert cartoon. I love Dilbert cartoons. I use them a lot.
Yeah, and
They're
the other
wonderful.
thing, the other thing that this reminds me of is when I was in consulting and I was working with, it was a pretty expensive project really for this, well, an important topic, right? It was like a market entry strategy, and we were doing the final presentation with the stakeholder, where we were just preparing for the board presentation, and so we were going over the presentation. And at one point, literally, I was grouping a load of objects on PowerPoint, as he told me to like left a bit, up a bit, no, down a bit, no, there. And that was what we were doing for the entire presentation.
Yes.
I mean, and I was like, don't you want to actually like look at the numbers that we'd spent 2 weeks building? But no, all he wanted to do was center some objects which were like 1 millimeter off at center. So I totally
But, you know,
get the
that can
fact that
be
we,
very irritating, can't it? Like typos and those little alignment questions can be really irritating and very distracting, but they're not the substance of the message. And
no,
look, you know, in coming weeks, I'll talk about some of the different approaches that some of my clients take to that challenge. You know, there's some very polarized views actually in different organizations, very different cultures that say, well, you know, you must obsess or you mustn't obsess, or this is what you must obsess on and you must not
right,
obsess on that. So I think that there's some really valid things to think about and just make decisions about, so you're all in agreement around that sort of thing. But look, today I thought I'd dive in and look at, you know, 3 things that people might not consider to be about communication even. And one of those is about, you know, some common traps, first of all, that people fall into, but then look at how our brains work, because that's actually a big part of understanding what happens when we're preparing communication, but also when people are reviewing or receiving our communication.
yeah,
And then finally, I've got one tip for them, which I'll hold off until the end as
oh,
to
sounds
what
exciting.
I think they might be able to think about and do even. So, well,
Okay,
perhaps
so
I should begin.
let's do it. 3 points. I love 3 points. So
Yeah.
yeah, what's point
Well,
number one?
yes.
Where are we going to go? Where are we going to start?
I think let's have a look at what not to do. So some common traps that people fall into, I think would be a
Hmm.
good place to start. And I think they're important because they don't do justice to you or the information that you want to convey. And the very common thing I see people doing is sharing the journey that they've been on to come up with their insight. So
Mm.
they put all their data up front, or rather, you know, I did this and then I did that and then I did this and then I did that.
Oh yeah.
And they're forcing their audience. You've seen it, yeah?
Oh, I see it. Yeah, so we'll see it all the time. Especially, I mean, often finance professionals are great at this because they present all the numbers, and then the insight is on page 10, and all the senior stakeholders have flipped forward to page 10 and are going, "Come, can we just skip to page 10, please?" You know, and suddenly they're on the back foot, and then they've lost control.
And it's horrible. It's such a horrible feeling to have lost control like that. And so I guess that's one thing to do. But one of the problems, I guess, is that sharing that journey. Another one is to offer what I call the nervous parade of knowledge. And this is where somebody's not sure why they're communicating. It could be because they're junior or they're new in their role, or it could be, frankly, they just haven't been given a brief.
Mm.
And so they just think, well, I'll just put everything I know about this subject into the communication. Some people call it a kitchen sink communication, where everything but the
Mhm.
kitchen sink goes in. I don't know
Yeah,
if outside Australia that's a
yeah,
term that's
that's the
familiar.
term. That's the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have sinks
Yep.
here too. Yeah, this is
You
fine.
have sinks and you chuck everything in
We
them.
check everything of
Yes,
it as well.
exactly. Yeah. And so that's, you know, very comforting to the author, because they think, well, at least this way I can't be pulled apart for being wrong. I really can't be wrong. But it's useless for the audience, because, you know, how do you wade through all of that to find what really matters? So it
Yeah,
becomes very, very difficult. And again, you know, the communicator gets put on the back foot and gets some fairly harsh feedback often, which is, you know,
absolutely.
really, really uncomfortable. And the final one is a stream of consciousness. And this is what happens when people are just in a hurry, or they're just, you know, blurting things out and think, oh, you know, quickly get it all down and then send. You know, email is the classic case for the stream of consciousness, although I do unfortunately see it in other places as well, where it's some sort of meandering journey through the thinking process
Yes.
as you come to terms with what your insight might be. And then, oh, there it is. There's the idea. That's the answer. And because it's clear to them, you know, at the
Mm.
end of their
Yeah.
writing journey, they think, well, gosh, there it is. That's the answer. So therefore, it'll be clear to everybody else as well. But
Yeah.
they're not going to have a hope of following your thread because you've done your analysis, you know your topic, you know you're weaving in and out and jumping from thing to thing. So that becomes a very, very big challenge too. So I
It's
think they're the three biggest challenges I see, or problems.
Yeah, no, I like that. Not sharing the journey, the nervous parade of knowledge, and the stream of consciousness. I definitely see, I think, all of those. And that reminds me of that quote. I can't remember who said it. It's the one about, dear auntie, sorry, this is such a long letter. I didn't have time to write you a short one. Um,
Yes, yes,
and
it's attributed to all sorts of people, Mark Twain and Blaise
yeah,
Pascal and so on. We think it's Blaise Pascal. At least my business partner Jared is quite convinced it's him from
I
the
thought
1600s.
I thought everything
You
was
know,
Winston Churchill. I thought he had everything. I thought he got all
he
the
does,
quotes.
or if
And
it's not him,
Mark
it's
Twain gets,
Einstein.
yeah.
If not, it's Einstein.
There we go. But
But you know what? It's true, isn't it?
it is, yeah, it is true. And I think it's almost because if you haven't mastered it as a skill, then it does take a long time, a lot more time, and therefore people don't do it. But it's leaning into
Yes.
that um, development, right? If you nail this skill, then it does become quicker, and actually everything gets quicker because you don't have to build a 100-page presentation to deliver your 3 key points anymore.
That's right. And look, I do see clients. One of my favorites is actually a data analyst from a bank, and he was working with me for not very long actually. Then he sat down to present a business case, and he had 50 pages drafted. And he had a look at it,
Mm,
and he thought, well, actually, I don't think I need all of that. Maybe if I build the storyline, I can do it in less. And we typically see people cut their communication in half, but he cut
mm,
it down to 2 pages. He went from
yeah,
50 to 2, and he
yeah,
got his approval in a heartbeat as well,
yeah,
which was, he was
yeah,
just gobsmacked. He didn't think that was possible because,
yeah.
he just focused on what the audience needs. And I guess, to think about think about how the brain works. He was really focused on, well, my audience needs not to burn their calories. It's me that needs
Mm,
to burn the calories and do
do the
do the
work.
thinking. And
Perfect.
becomes a little bit primal actually, because when I didn't know this until a little while ago, but the brain is 2% of our weight, body mass on average,
Mm,
and yet it burns 20% of our calories. So there's a pretty big disconnect between those two.
mm,
So our biology is pretty keen to keep us limiting the amount of calories we're burning with our brain because it thinks
mm,
it's not big enough to
right.
justify that that calorie use. So whenever we
Mm,
think something doesn't matter so much, as soon as you think what happens when you open an email and you look at it and you think, oh gosh, this is dense, this is a wonder, I'm going to have to work really hard to think about this. You look at who it's from
yeah,
and you think, okay, do they justify me investing a lot to
right.
read this email, or paper or PowerPoint, or the
Yeah.
same principle applies. And if there's not any great burning need,
Mm,
be it the CEO's sending the email, so of course I'm going to read it,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
I know this is from someone that's got something really important to say that I need to know, we just switch off and we flag it for later, we park it for later.
But even if it's the CEO sending the message, actually, if it's not clear, the number of times people misread something. I mean, a client of mine was just doing a form, literally yesterday in my coaching hub, and it's a very
Mm,
simple little form just to help them digest and think about something. There was a one-line instruction that was super clear, and they misinterpreted it. I mean, it was super clear, the instruction. So, like, even when it is one line and it is actually very simple, people can easily misread it. And therefore, how much more when you're sending really critical strategy, vision, communications, do you need to be super, super aware of making it
super
easy
aware.
for people to go in?
Yes, yes. And I use a little framework there to help people think about how much they should invest
Mhm.
in a piece of communication. And I think about it in terms of impact, which was the lever that you were talking about just there, but then also about the distribution. So if you think, okay, it's a really simple email, it's not something that's very complex, but it's going to 100 people. Well, if I don't invest that extra 10 minutes to really make sure I've nailed my message, there's 100 people that have got to spend 5 minutes trying
Mm,
to work out what I'm trying to say, and then possibly taking a very unhelpful action as well, doing the wrong thing as a result. So then you've got,
mm,
50 fires to fight. So, the
right.
productivity impact is something to really think about when we are deciding how much to invest in a piece of communication. And then of course there's impact. If it's something hugely impactful and important and it's only going to 3 people, well, you've got to sweat it for the same sorts of reasons. The impact is the key thing.
Yeah, so you're doing the hard work, right, and not forcing them to do the hard work, especially when
Exactly.
it's scale, because you're the one trying to influence, so it needs to be on you, right? You can't expect them to
Yes.
be in your corner figuring out what you're
Correct.
saying. Often
Correct.
we see that role reversal, right? I mean, a lot of executives, one of the things I help them realize is where there's role reversal going on in their organizations, where they're actually like the one having to do the problem solving with their report, because their report is like not communicating clearly about what they want or what they need. And the exec is spending all their time going, so what exactly do you need? What's the approval here? What's, and they're doing all the hard work. It's role reversal, right? They should be the
It
one
is.
sitting there. I mean, I exaggerate, but they should be sitting there on their golden throne, expecting the the kind of the person to come in, with everything prepared so that they can dispense their wisdom. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but
Oh, so they
you
can,
need to,
but so they can add value,
yeah.
so they can add value. And, when I hear senior people taking home 500 pages at a weekend, every weekend to rework, I just think, role reversal is exactly the thing that's going on.
Mm,
They're not skimming it to say, yes, great idea, go ahead.
mm,
They're rewriting them.
yeah.
And, that's a tragedy. It really shouldn't be like that. So,
Absolutely.
it's a very material challenge, I think. And, that's also time that those senior people are not spending on adding substantial value in their role. So that's, it's the wrong way around, isn't it? It's a role reversal. You put it beautifully. Mm.
And so let's just see where we are in this. So we've had these 3
Mm.
communication traps about
Mhm.
showing the journey, the parade of knowledge, the stream of consciousness. Now we've been getting
Mhm.
onto this whole idea of our brains, um, about making sure that we're doing the hard work,
And not
rather and
the
not the reader.
audience.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, if things are critical, it's helpful to understand what people actually do, particularly senior people. And I think it's important to understand that they prioritize their reading very carefully. They do manage their time very, very carefully because they've all got far too much to do.
Mm,
So when you're submitting a piece of communication to someone who's busy, and we all are, honestly, no matter how senior we are, do realize that they're going to prioritize it, and so make it easy to skim. Okay, make your communication easy to skim so that they can flip through and see where they should dive in and spend more time. So that I think that helps you, if in terms of the way you prioritize the messaging within your communication, but it helps your audience enormously. So be very aware that they're going to prioritize and zero in on the big ticket things and really highlight them visually
mm,
as well as just in terms of having them present. But if you're thinking about, well, okay, so we're going to accept that we perhaps don't want to do that role reversal, play that role reversal game. We want to make sure that we're doing our job, we're investing our own calories, burning our own calories to get the stories clear, the communication clear. Well,
mm,
what's one thing we can do about that? And I think it's to think about that single message. If they only took away one sentence from,
mm,
even if it's a large paper, if they took away one sentence, then, that's gold. Make sure that that's really near
mm,
the top of your communication and, make it very, very easy for them to find visually. If it's not the first thing, then very soon after with some white space around it.
mm,
And, if you struggle to work out what that message is, just imagine yourself bumping into your audience in the hallway
mm.
and say, well, if there's only one thing that I told them and I got it in a sentence, what would that be?
Yeah.
And see if you can have that right near the front of your communication. I think that will make, quite a big difference.
Yeah, the other one is, I call it the panic button. It's the same kind of thing, which is literally, imagine you're in the presentation and they suddenly go, oh, we've got it, like there's a fire alarm, or like, actually, we've had to reschedule the meeting and you've only got 1 minute now. What do you want to
Yes.
say? You just need to know, if you're going to blurt it out, the one thing you need to say, what is it?
Yes, exactly, exactly. So, that's the thing to focus on, and try really not to send your email or send your paper out until you're really clear on what that is.
Mm,
And I think that would be my number one tip for today. I've got some more in our coming episodes, but that's
yeah.
the number one thing that I think I'd love people to think about, after listening to this session.
That's great, isn't it? I mean, every newsletter, every newspaper article, has a big headline. Very simple, one thing, right? It's 5 words or whatever, right? It's very simple, and that's what draws you in. So I think
It
that's a great
does.
point.
No, it does draw you in. And it's deceptively simple, though, because I think sometimes it can be quite challenging to work out what that single point is. And so I think sometimes when people ask you to keep it short, they're underestimating that challenge, which is part of what I'm hoping to provide some ideas to help with in the coming episodes. So,
So what's next time? So what are we going to deal with in episode 2 of this season?
So next time, I'd love to talk about how to go from how to communicate insight rather than just information. I think there's a lot of communication provides a lot of very helpful data or information, if you like, but it doesn't always crystallize it into something that's very useful for the audience. So I'd like to share with people a hierarchy, actually, of ideas so that they can have a sense of where they land. Is their communication focusing particularly on information, or is it delivering insight, and how do they know what's different between those two things?
Great, information or insight. I love that. So look forward to that conversation in the next episode. Well, thanks, Dav. It's been good to get a little bit of your wisdom from your world of powerful communication. So thanks for that, and look forward to continuing the conversation in the next episode.
Thanks, Richard. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Okay.
Bye for
now. Bye-bye.
If you've been enjoying this series, you may like some more ideas that will help you communicate with impact, especially if you're dealing with complex material. My free course, How to Communicate with Impact, does just that. In this course, I cover 4 areas: how to get faster, more useful responses to your communication. Secondly, how your audiences really read your communication. Thirdly, how to communicate the right amount of detail. And finally, how to communicate powerful insights that cut through. So you can access this course by using this link, www.clarityfirstprogram.com/impact-podcast. I hope you find this useful and look forward to bringing more ideas to you through our upcoming podcasts. Thanks so much, and bye for now.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now let's talk about you. When you're in top leadership, when you're in the biggest role of your career, who supports you at a deep level as you lead others? Who helps you multiply your impact and get to the next level? If you're ready to learn more about our content, our coaching, and our community, then visit us at xquadrant.com.